I'm Sarah Richardson, a principal here at This Week Health, where our mission is healthcare transformation powered by community. Welcome to Flourish, where we share the human stories behind healthcare leadership, because thriving people build thriving systems. Let's begin. Welcome to Flourish, the podcast that explores bold journeys, brave pivots, and the art of building a career that feels both authentic and impactful. I'm your host, Sarah Richardson. What happens when brilliant women walk out and toxic ones stay? In this episode of Flourish, we sit down with Dr. Amber Tichenor, organizational psychologist, thought leader, and author of Behind Frenemy Lines, to explore the unspoken reality of female rivalry in the workplace. And this goes from high-stakes environments like IBM and NASA to today's frontline nursing units. Amber unpacks the patterns that undermine trust and how we can replace them with connection, confidence, and psychological safety. We'll talk about the science behind relational aggression, the cultural cost of ignoring it, and how women can rewrite the narrative for themselves and each other. This one's about truth-telling, healing, and thriving together. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. I'm happy to be here.
And I just got to throw out an early thank you. Several people look at my book reviews. We already did a book review about Behind Frenemy Lines. You sent me 3 copies just in time for a trip to Europe with 2 of my best girlfriends who are also in this industry. And we absolutely loved it. So thank you for that thoughtful trip item for us to be able to share together.
Welcome. Thank you for the review. That's fun to read it with your girlfriends.
It's fun because we've all experienced that rivalry scenario, and we are all committed to one another's success and careers. And you realize to a degree how uncommon it is. And we would sit there and share different passages and realize that we are so grateful and so lucky to have each other in our universe. And you bring forward something, though, that so many of us have struggled with in our careers, and likely many continue to struggle with today. And I will tell you, by your research and your book and what we continue to put out into the universe, I am hopeful we arm people with the strategies and tools they need to not be bullied in the workplace by other associates, for sure.
100%. Been there, done that. We're going to change it.
We are going to continue to change it. Your work bridges psychology, leadership, and culture. What first inspired you to focus on female rivalry in the workplace?
So I was getting my PhD and I had to focus on a topic that I saw occurring in the work environment. I knew I wanted it to be about women. And so then I saw it occurring at the project I was working on at NASA. And I'm like, good women are walking. And not only that, the people around these women are walking on eggshells because everybody can feel it, everybody can see it, but no one's talking about it or naming it. And I just was interested in it. Little did I know that I would uncover such a hot topic that resonated with so many women. And then fast forward, after I had my PhD, I'm back again in a different working environment, and it happened to me. And I call it the best worst thing that could have happened, because from my research, I thought, I knew everything about this topic. Like, I've gained it from other people. I know, I have empathy. But when it happened to me, I had no clue it was occurring until my mom said, I hate to see how you doubt yourself all because of this other woman. And I was shocked to my core because I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally in what I've researched. So it was the best worst thing because I knew it then. I truly knew what was going on. But my first thought was, if I have as much knowledge as I have, but I didn't see it occurring, what's it doing to women who don't have the knowledge that I have, and how can I help them? And so that's what I took from that experience, letting women know what it is, how it makes you feel, how it can occur, but ultimately how to switch it and stop it and turn it so women can actually be better together and not against one another.
In working with IBM and NASA, some of the most lauded companies in our country, what did you observe in the environments that started to shape some of that research and then later turning that into your book?
Often I was, for the most part, in public sector environments. So you would see a lot of male dominant organizations. And instead of women bonding together, especially as they grew higher up in their leadership trajectory, I saw them not supporting one another. And there were limited seats at the table. And so it was my way, or you're going to do what I can to get my seat at the table and forget about you along the way. So that dynamic planted the seed for my research. And then just talking to women and the rawness of what they experienced and how people say it's a cat fight or women being dramatic. And I'm like, oh my God, it goes so much deeper than that. And I can't call out if they had PTSD, but I know so many women who've gone through this, it impacts them at such a deeper level that it's a more serious conversation. And I think that's what came out of it for me. So I also saw how a culture can either foster tearing somebody down or it can foster allyship. And so it's truly all a part of the leadership and, how people are working together or not.
And in your book, Behind Frenemy Lines, it dives truly into the complex dynamic of women undermining women. I'm curious why this is so prevalent in professional settings and especially in the lens of healthcare.
It happens in all organizations. It's rare that I've met a woman that it does not happen to, which is sad. But if you think healthcare, you think nursing. And so that's predominantly a female, for the most part, culture. And so female dominant cultures, you have a lot of women working together. They're high stakes environments. There might be limited seats at the table. There's a scarcity mindset. And when that happens, rivalry and comparison creep in. Maybe there's a hierarchical, you have to do all these stepping stones to move up. Maybe it's a culture that they're not prioritizing communication. So often you see that occurring. That can fuel women undermining each other. And once it starts, it's like the ball rolling down the hill. It kind of gets bigger and bigger as it goes.
And when organizations get things wrong in trying to address rivalry or bullying, what are you seeing?
They often, first and foremost, often it's not addressed, which I think is the big red flag because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know what it is. I remember one woman telling me she was experiencing it. There was nobody on her team that she could talk to. She went to HR and the woman said, "You're lying. I don't believe you." So the not talking about it and not believing is a huge part of it. It's an intangible behavior that can be very easily hidden. So while you may see this side of me, maybe Tina down the way is seeing something different, especially if I'm projecting something negative towards her. So one of the biggest mistakes that organizations can make about it is calling it a cat fight or saying it's a personal problem. It's just women being dramatic. It's not. It goes much deeper than that because the culture is fostering the behavior. And so it's often fueled by the scarcity mindset, the lack of leadership, the lack of collaboration, the lack of mentorship, the lack of feeling safe in the environment that you're in. So if all of those things are happening and you're not getting visible support, this is where these behaviors will start to come into play. Another miss for organizations on this is they'll do a Band-Aid fix. They might check the box to say, hey, we added that to our training, or we're going to have a workshop that covers this. But if you don't change the environment and you tell people to play nice or women to play nice to each other, it's like going up against a wall, telling them to do something, but they're not being set up for success with it. So that means the culture's working against them. So it's not drama, it's a culture problem, and it ultimately comes down, you have to fix the culture, but first you have to name what the problem is.
Well, and the one-time check the box workshop certainly isn't going to get us there, as we both know all too well. And you've said that when women love themselves, they can love other women. I'm curious too, what are a few ways that we build that self-awareness and mutual support? Or if you've been beaten down to where you have that self-doubt and you just are afraid to speak up and love yourself and help others, how do you get there?
It is one of my favorite quotes because I firmly believe that if you don't love yourself, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to love yourself to love other people, other women, friends. So you have to kick your inner she bully to the curb because she will tear you down. And so by doing that is you celebrate your own worth. You stop comparing. Look at how you show up differently. Look at that as something unique to be celebrated, not something that's negative. If you need counseling or somebody to help bounce that off, go get it. I'm a firm believer of all of that because you need to raise your own self up. And then once you can start doing that to yourself, then it's easy to share that with other people, uplift other women, openly cheering them on. And that's how you build a sisterhood. So if you stop seeing women as your competition and start seeing them as your ally, that's how you raise the sisterhood and ways you can do this. So practice honest self-reflection, understand what triggers you, and then lean into that. Why is that triggering to me? Celebrate your wins, celebrate her wins, shift from comparison to connection. So instead of asking why her, why not ask why not us? Like, think of the allyship mentality. Show your support out loud. If you are cheering other women on by mentoring or amplifying other voices, giving credit, that's infectious behavior. So often it's looking in, like, and you're looking at your triggers, like, why do I feel this way? Then that is doing the personal self work to love yourself.
Such great tips, and hard for so many people, especially when they're wrapped up in the childcare, the parental care, the career, the being the wife, the whatever role is being played in a family, you always put yourself last. And how
Oh,
important it is to continue to reframe like, hey, if I put myself first, it's actually not about being selfish. It's about creating an environment where other people get to thrive too. And back to the healthcare aspect with nursing teams and others. How do leaders create a culture of psychological safety, especially in a high stress environment like a hospital, in acute care, taking care of patients, is dealing with so many things. And if you've ever either been a nurse or rounded with nurses or spent time in those environments, you see what, and they're working often 12-hour shifts, all the things that come at them. How do you create the environment that allows them to feel safer, both physically and mentally?
so rivalry or bullying will root in a culture where people don't feel safe. So speaking up, it means when you're taking a risk, or if there's a feeling of scarcity, this can be very dangerous in hospitals when you're caring for patients. So that can be nurses competing for approval, withholding information, undermining each other, psychological bullying. So nurse bullying, it's there. Studies will show that nurse bullying is prominent in the healthcare system, which is so hard and so sad because they have an oath of caring for other people. So leaders can make collaboration visible. So publicly recognize when people are supporting each other. The huge one in my mind is normalizing being vulnerable, letting people know that you are a real person. Showing, like what you just said, I'm not just a worker, I'm a mother, I'm a parent, I have my dogs, I'm caregiving for my older parents. Showing your pain points relates to other people because they might be going through the same thing and they see you as real. Showing too with that mistakes are an opportunity to learn, not something to be punished. That's when people feel they'll be punished for having done something that was an accident or a mistake, then they'll stay quiet about it. So being vulnerable shows that mistakes are real. Creating safe spaces. So safe spaces to talk where staff can share their concerns. So you keeping in mind too that everybody communicates differently. And let's say we'll give the nursing team as an example. They're not all going to be together at the same time because you have different shifts and different times. But maybe have an email box or have a Dropbox where people can drop off comments that they can be anonymous or they can leave their name. But then later in a team meeting, you are pulling out what people have told you. You're sharing it back with the team. You're letting them know you're listening. And by letting them know they're being heard, you're telling them how you're going to fix what their concerns are. When psychological safety is present, people's guard begins to go down because they see each other as real people. They know they can relate to them, and you know that you can bring your whole self to the table, not just bits and pieces of you. And that's when you foster the sisterhood, you foster respect amongst your team.
When someone is experiencing this and they're hearing this right now and they're like, I don't know where to start. Like, what advice do you give a clinician or a leader who doesn't know how to intervene when this surfaces? So they're doing all the things you've mentioned, and now the person who's responsible for taking care of it or for actually doing something about it is like, I wasn't trained to fix this. I don't know what to do next. How does a leader start to get in front of this if they know that they need to within their organization?
So I call that the elephant in the boardroom, because you all feel it, you all are walking around it, but you don't know how to address it. So first, ask for help. I help with this. There are other people that help with this, but what you can immediately do is not ignore it. You can't walk around the elephant. You need to name the elephant. You need to say, okay, this is what we have going on here. We have, and sometimes it's hard to see because, let's say, female bullying is very intangible. So you might think something's going on, but not exactly know what it is because it can be hard to pinpoint. But call out the behavior. Another key thing is don't focus on the blame. Let's say Sarah and Amber are two people that are having a rift between them. Don't call out their names in front of the department. That will do nobody any good. So instead of labeling people as the problem, show how the behavior is undermining the teamwork, how it's hurting the communication or the collaboration. Again, it goes back to safe places, creating safe places for resolution, to have boundaries, to be vulnerable, to really show up and let everybody talk and say how they are feeling. If you need to implement a bystander training, I'm a firm believer of this. So calling out if you see bad behaviors occurring, that way everybody on the team is well equipped to know what to do. And number two, it's not 3 strikes, you're out. It's 1 strike, you're out. It's we will not tolerate this behavior. You do it, you're out of here. And ultimately, for leaders and other people on the team as well, it's practicing what you preach. You can't just say, we're going to do all of these things. You have to show and lead by example. So you have to show it in your own actions, like what allyship and collaboration and being vulnerable and having open, transparent communication looks like.
And that, a lot of that, like perspective, it goes beyond just are women getting along and what does nursing and other aspects look like? You went even further from a PhD and did a certification with the Academy on Brain-Based Leadership. How has that influenced how you help organizations approach conflict? And this is for our male listeners as well as our female listeners, because we're all responsible for creating these safe environments.
Oh my gosh, it was so eye-opening because it let me know it's not about emotion. It's literally about your brain. It was one of those things that I wish I would have started like years and years ago, because it was so fascinating. A common quote that we heard every day was, "It's not you, Sarah, it's your brain." So it helped me translate that conflict is not a people problem. It's something that's rooted in how our brains work. I never thought of it this way, and I thought it was so fascinating. When the brain perceives threat, so that can be in the terms of exclusion or micromanagement or subtle rivalries, anything, it reacts the same way as if you are feeling physical danger. So someone breaking into your home, maybe, you're being chased. These are extreme examples, but your brain goes into that flight, fight, or freeze response. Same thing. And I was shocked by that, but it makes sense once you understand this is your brain. So that's why so much conflict can spiral, is because everybody's brain is different, and how you perceive conflict or something fearful, my brain will probably react very differently than your brain would. So I help organizations understand what this conflict is, and you can't just tell people to get along. You have to implement safe workplaces where the brain feels safe, where people know they belong, where people have autonomy, where people feel vulnerable and can share, and where there's trust and open communication. So this framework that I've been trained with has been a game changer in helping organizations understand their people. People have asked, is it a personality assessment? It's literally how your brain works, how you think about things.
That blueprint then, super helpful with teams, bringing it together, understanding you're going to fight, I'm going to flee. Somebody else may just stand there with like bugging out at the screen kind of a thing. The tactics that it teaches you are so important, which is how to get along. So you've got the brain-based activities. We've all done the personality ones and all the other aspects. Start bringing it all together. I'm curious from your perspective, what's an organizational practice that you would love to see adopted to support healthier workplace dynamics, regardless of any formal training people have received? What's something they can do that makes a difference now?
If I could wave my magic wand, it would be implementing mentorship and recognition to everybody daily. So it's visible because it's a little thing, but it's not like it's like you're training yourself to form a habit, but it lets everybody know that this is a place where we lift each other up and not tear down. We're recognizing, we're supporting, we're collaborating, we're sharing. So rivalry thrives in scarcity and silence, and visibility, recognizing people creates abundance. So it's flipping that switch. It's just letting everybody know that, hey, we're celebrating you today. This is why. And it becomes infectious.
What about when performance is an issue? So I'm a firm believer that you can be kind and firm. Do not have to be mutually exclusive. You can say, Amber, you're an amazing human. And by the way, you did a terrible job in that meeting. Like, as you create psychological safety for people to work together effectively, how do you weave in performance standards with that in a way that still feels genuine?
Well, I think you have up front what the standards are that people should be working with or for. And so that's sometimes really not negotiable. That's part of the work. So, like you said, you can talk about it and not be degrading about it. You're not going to shame them in front of their colleagues and say, this is what you're doing wrong, Susan. That's obviously a one-off conversation. And I think it's the okay, here's what you're doing well, here's what can be improved, and setting milestones and markers to work for those things, but not tear down in the process. And then looking at it like sometimes, is this a good fit? Are they in the right spot where they need to be? And then it's maybe adjusting. Maybe there's a better spot in the team or organization where the things that they bring to the table can blossom better.
I appreciate that because too often people will ask me, how do I deal with an employee who's not performing well? And yet, how do I also make sure that it doesn't become like a personal, like almost like a vendetta? Sometimes things get warped in those perspectives, especially digitally now. I mean, how often are we having these types of hardcore conversations over Zoom? And wow, what a differentiation from, gosh, when I entered the workforce, you were with your boss probably every day in person, and the types of interactions or learning how to quote unquote perform or show up in some of these environments, you got to witness firsthand. So I'm curious too how you're helping people manage, I'm just going to call it the digital divide, because we have all these wonderful things that we can work from anywhere in many cases, and yet the personal connection is lost more and more. How do you bring some of these principles together if it's virtual?
It's hard. And I think the first and foremost, I've had to catch myself too. Like, let's say it's email or text or whatever, you can't interpret tone. Somebody may be very dry or somebody may chat too much. I think it comes down to that transparent communication, and you are modeling how you communicate and how you would like that communication reciprocated amongst your team, and letting people know like it comes down to feeling safe again. We're all going to have different ways that we do things. I think the digital age is so hard because you're right, you're not seeing everybody every day, and there's a lot that can be interpreted that may not be correct. So you have to put your assumptions aside, but you're looking with your team, you have the same end goal, and it's focusing on that. It's the soft stuff, it's the communication, it's the being vulnerable, it's talking through things and not getting defensive. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but ultimately I think if you have those things in place, even with this technology divide, that can help make it easier to work out.
No, I appreciate that because you have done the academic and the practitioner side of all of this. How do you bridge the evidence-based research with the practical action?
Well, I feel that I kind of have my feet into both doors or both areas. So it's the taking the research that's telling us the story. I bridge that by then helping organizations and teams understand what's going on, but then putting it into actionable steps. That's a mouthful. I have workshops and checklists and talks and things that they can do. So you're listening and learning, but then you can take that and turn it into action. And then you'll see how it works for teams to grow and be better together.
Some of it's trial and error. How much are you finding that people are willing to be vulnerable enough as a leader to say, hey, we're going to try this because we know we need to address this need. And maybe we're going to extrapolate 80% of the learnings and then have an adaptability factor that goes with that. When you're working with teams and they're trying these things on and working through and figuring things out, what is that balance of the equation where you start to see it really pay off?
It's doing the groundwork. It's having that baseline in place. I don't know if this is really answering your question, but I think when people really truly know that they are valued, that they are accepted for bringing their whole person to the table. I'm not just work Amber. You have all Amber, which might be mom Amber sometimes or wife Amber, like I'm here, all of me, and I'm accepted for who I am. So it's that vulnerability. And when people are learning each other on these teams, but when you really know people and you feel like they have your back, you have that collaboration and that allyship, you don't want to let people down. So that sparks that creativity. People want to do more. So studies have shown when people feel that they can bring their whole person to work and be accepted for who they are, they're willing to give more. And I think that's what helps teams flourish and grow. It might not be one set thing, but it's that feeling ultimately of being psychologically safe.
Yeah, seen, heard, valued, such simple principles, and yet so often overlooked or ignored over time. I have to also do a shout out to Sue Shade, who is a friend and mentor to me, a friend to you. She introduced us, which I love. And so we did our pre-call and hey, let's get to know each other before we put out a long format podcast. And you are a mother, you are a cancer survivor, and you also have a puppy named Walter. I loved learning about, you were like, and he's over here, when we chatted. How have these life experiences influenced your perspective on what really matters in leadership and life? Because I'll say that you can be all of those things, and then you add illness or disease or other pieces on top of it that you're also having to manage.
It's big. It has taught me that leadership isn't about titles or control. It's about empathy and creating connection and how we show up for each other. I think having cancer was so humbling, and it also really taught me. I was very amazed by this, who's in my corner and who has my back. So yeah, maybe my circle has shrunk a little bit, but I know those people are really there. So that was eye-opening. Motherhood, I learn every day about patience. I learn to listen to my children. Like I learned that I do need to practice what I preach because they're always watching. And I have two teenagers, 15 and 16 right now, and they will call me out on things. So, but I love learning from them because they're a different generation and they bring different perspectives. And Walter also daily teaches me patience because he's busy. We are teaching him to walk on the leash, but he also teaches me that you can't take life too seriously. Just this morning, I was trying to pull him out of the house and have him sit, and no, he wanted to chase his tail. So you have to stop and have fun because that's what life is about. It's the good, the bad, the odd, the whatever, but you know what? You learn a little something along the way with everything.
I feel like Walter's probably a good lesson for today. That sometimes you just chase your tail and it's okay.
I mean,
Just just
yeah.
having a good time. So we say that's a bad thing. You know what? Walter probably had a pretty good plan this morning. It's amazing though. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing the story about really about cancer survivorship as well, because sometimes we feel shamed if we can't be the perfect version of ourselves and we cannot control what happens around us, but we certainly can adapt and to a degree control how we respond to those. And the fact that you could still do all these amazing things while you're battling it is just a testament, I think, to your leadership and what you bring to women and our male allies as well. And that's why I'm curious again, small but mighty action. What is something that anyone listening today can do to move from either a competitor perspective to a collaboration perspective? And I'll say this as well without feeling that they're compromising themselves, because in all the work I've done with leadership as well, is people who are insecure or who do not love themselves are almost embarrassed to be able to step forward and admit maybe they do need to make a change or be nice in certain scenarios. So, regardless of where you are on your leadership journey, what is one mighty action that someone can take?
I honestly think a small but mighty action is celebrate other women. You can do it out loud or you can do it internally. So, out loud, it can be promoting something on social media, sharing about their business, sharing the work that she's done in a meeting. But I also think it's the internal. It's how we talk to ourselves. It's that she bully thing. And so sometimes you'll see somebody walk by on the road or whatever, and you're critical of, oh wow, what's that? What's she wearing? Or instead, flip it. Find one thing. Any woman you see walking by, find something positive in your mind that you can think about her. Like, what a cute haircut. And it sounds superficial, but you are changing your brain in regarding how you view other women. And then when you're saying it out loud to somebody or giving another woman a compliment, you don't know what her daylight is like. And so it goes back to always be kind, but that little thing to you might be a really big thing to her, but it's infectious. And so she might go in turn and give somebody else a compliment because you made her feel so good. So it does become infectious, and it's little, but it helps you change your brain in how you're viewing other women.
I had a leadership training one time that said find the like in anybody, especially because the old adage of like, if you don't like somebody, they don't like you. That's fine. You might still have to work together. So find the like.
Yeah.
It's possible to coexist. But what I also love about what you shared, and I find fascinating, and this goes back to, again, that self-love, is that how often I will genuinely compliment another woman and there's an excuse for it. Like instead of saying thank you, they will give you five excuses why like what you just said wasn't true. And I'm like, and I'll tell people, my friends know this. I'm like, just say thank you. Because if you
Exactly.
said right now, like, I love your shirt today. Thank you is the perfect answer. And you might go, oh gosh, well, I just pulled up, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
Hey,
there's something. Oh, well, yeah. No, thank you. It's
what?
hard.
But what is that? Why do people not just say thank you and be like grateful that, hey, yeah, I do like this sweater. I do like these glasses. Like, where does that come from? And how do people start to overcome that self-doubt in themselves?
I think it's that she bully that's talking, because you know what? We all have her. I have her too. And you just have to kick her to the curb because she does not belong there. Like, you have to tame her. So it's like, no, I do look good in this shirt and I'm going to own it, like it's it's what we say to ourselves. I honestly think that. And so I have a statistic that what people say to themselves is far worse than what you would say to anybody else. And that stuck with me. There's some statistic about it. And I'm like, wow, think how damaging that is if you're listening to that all the time.
And an exercise I've been shared with me before is every time you think something mean about yourself, write it down and keep a list. Because when you go back and you look and go, what would you say to that person who's bullying this person? You're like, that is so mean. You're like, that's what you say to yourself. And so, how do you change every one of those negative comments into a positive? And if you don't believe it, how are you going to get there? And to your point, bring your female allies around you, because if there's one thing that women do incredibly well when they do love themselves, is tell other women everything else that's so wonderful about them, even when they don't see it. And I love being a space in my life where I can do that, because I don't know if it's turning 50 or what happened, but at some point you're like, I have nothing. My best asset is to give, because you clawed your way to get there. And so you're there and you're like, oh, awesome. Now I can give back. And so I'm so grateful that you brought all these ideas forward, because it was a rough go for a long time. There's going to be people listening, Amber, and this is why I'm so grateful for our time together today, who are going to hear this and be like, well, I don't feel like I'm seen and heard and valued. I don't feel like I'm the best version of myself for so many reasons. And here's how I can get there.
I have women tell me, I remember the first talk I gave, and she said, I feel so alone. I thought I was the only one. And it's heartbreaking because a lot of women feel this way. And so you are not alone. And you're right. I'm in my 50s now, too. And I think there's a switch that goes on, and it's like, okay, woohoo, we're going to change this behavior. So, yes, no one should feel alone. No one should feel that they're the only one going through this. And there are ways to overcome it for sure. You can do it.
And they're going to hear this and be curious about how to connect with you, where to find your book. What's the best way for people listening to reach out and find you?
So I have my website, Dr. Amber Tichenor, PhD, Tichenor, and you can find me there. I'm also active on LinkedIn and Instagram. And my book is on Amazon. It's at Barnes and Noble, but anywhere books are sold. And I also have an assessment on my website. If you are curious, if you are working in a psychologically safe work environment, that's a good little quiz to take to tell you if your organization needs changing. So, but yes, I love to help women. I love to help women be better together and find their sisterhood, because it's what it's all about. And the joy I have from my female friends, it breaks my heart when women tell me they don't have female friends or they don't have that, because I can't imagine my life without that in it.
100%. Like, I'm so attached to my girlfriends, as I say, and every day there's just texts constantly of just affirmation and love and wonderfulness that come through, because guess what? Not every day is awesome, but boy, do you know that you have all of those people in your corner when you need help. And I'm so grateful that we got to talk about all of this today, for sure. And thank you for sharing your powerful perspective and practical wisdom. Whether you're confronting rivalry to creating a safer, more supportive space for women to thrive, today's conversation is a reminder that real leadership starts with self-awareness and the courage to challenge the status quo. If Behind Frenemy Lines resonated with you, pick up a copy, share it with your team, start a dialogue that matters, and reach out to Amber. Bring her into your organization. Have her help you solve some of the problems that maybe people are afraid to talk about. Amber, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And as always, keep flourishing. Thanks for listening. That's all for now. Thanks for joining Flourish. Remember that every healthcare leader needs a community to learn from and to lean on. Find your people at thisweekhealth.com/subscribe. Share this episode with someone who needs encouragement today. Keep flourishing. That's all for now.